There's more to imagine when you listen, so let your imagination soar with Audible. Audible has audio titles from every genre that will inspire you to imagine new worlds, possibilities, and ways of thinking. As an Audible member, you get to choose one title a month to keep from their entire catalog. Enjoy an exciting reawakening of a beloved classic with the Audible original David Copperfield by Charles Dickens, produced by Academy Award-winning director Sam Mendes, starring Ncuti Gatwa, Helena Bonham Carter, and Theo James. This adaptation breathes new life into a familiar tale. New members can try Audible free for 30 days. Visit audible.com/imagine or text IMAGINE to 500-500. That's audible.com/imagine or text IMAGINE to 500-500.
And welcome back to Scarred for Life, the podcast where we open up old wounds by looking back at the films that scared us as kids. I'm Terry.
And I'm Mary Beth.
And each episode, our special guest brings with them a movie that traumatized them as a child.
This week, our guest is Michelle Iannantuono, writer and director of Livescream, Detroit Evolution, and most recently, Livescreamers, which we have talked about a lot on the podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Okay, so for our listeners that might not be aware, can you kind of explain what Livescreamers is about?
Livescreamers is the standalone sequel to Livescream from 2018. Both movies are essentially found footage Twitch streams, so they take a gameplay format, people playing a game online, and they take that sort of computer screen format and show a real-time haunt where the video game starts killing people in real life. The difference between the two is that Livescreamers is a more bombastic multiplayer experience where a group of kind of game journalists, like sort of a game studio. This is like a Rooster Teeth or a Game Grumps or an IGN or something like that, something that has a budget. They get together and play a haunted game that starts killing them in the room. Whereas Livescream is sort of the more lo-fi, like singular guy on his own channel, 200 followers, a chat, it's just him and his fans, his small community tackling the haunted game. So it's sort of the before and after picture of me as a streamer as well, sort of me back in 2018 being a fan of that sort of thing and then kind of doing it myself and building an audience myself and having lots of trauma and experiences, good and bad, through that process that led me to make Livescreamers.
I watch a lot of streamers, especially during the pandemic. I became obsessed with watching a bunch of the YouTube streamers. But there's a lot of lingo here and a lot of it feels real from that perspective. So it doesn't surprise me that you are, but was that something that you started in 2018? Or when did you start doing that?
So it sort of came about from being a filmmaker.
Okay.
Because in 2018, I was a huge fan of Markiplier and Jacksepticeye and Achievement Hunter and all these streamers. And I was only in the audience. I didn't play online myself. And since 2013, so 2013 to 2018, I was deeply entrenched. It was my primary form of entertainment was to watch YouTube and Twitch. And okay. So, I had seen more streams of PT and Five Nights at Freddy's that I could count.
Yeah.
And so that's why that movie is so referential and sort of homaging a lot of what I would see in the communities of those streamers where, you'd have people show up and be like, your stream saved my life, or I'm stuck in the hospital and I'm so depressed, but watching your content makes me feel better and all that sort of stuff. And it just really made me kind of heartwarmed by the whole thing. In addition to having been in fandoms my whole life as well, and growing up in the convention scene and that sort of thing. And then what ended up happening was I made those Detroit fan films, the Detroit Become Human fan films. Yeah. And that connected me, it put a lot of eyes on me in that fandom.
Yeah.
And we kind of ended up creating a fandom for Octopunk Media, my company, through that. To the point where we were able to host fan events in Munich, New York, London, and people came from all over the world to come see our Detroit stuff, but also other stuff. We had a whole hour about Livescreamers, at some of those, and they got to see previews and stuff of it. but it's still like it's that double-edged sword of like there's some really awesome things, like people have tattoos with like that are referencing my stuff, or people have they've made amazing fan arts, and there's somebody this weekend who's going to New York City Comic-Con cosplaying as characters from a short that I did called Seven Deadly Sins, even still to this day. So that's the really awesome stuff about it. But then some of the other stuff that happened like ended up in Livescreamers. So it is sort of like I still believe in the things that I put into Livescream. I hold both truths at once. It's sort of the two sides of like fandom and community.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what I liked about the sequel in particular, is because it does tackle kind of that parasocial relationship from both perspectives. Like we have the fan that's joining them, and we see like kind of from her perspective, but for good and bad, we also see the parasocial from the other side, and kind of the problems that can arise from that. So like that's something that like I really latched onto, particularly on this last rewatch of it, because we both saw it at Unnamed Footage Festival. Then last night I rewatched it to prep for this. But that parasocial thing is such a, I don't know, it's such a weighty topic.
Yeah, I think I made a friend, Shannon Strucci was sort of the originator of that in a lot of ways. And at least in terms of like, didn't invent the term parasocial, but sort of popularized it. Because they made something called Fake Friends, which is a video essay on YouTube, which was a lot about Jacksepticeye and Bo Burnham, but some other people as well, who had started to raise the alarm that having an audience directly on the internet is different from how we used to have like celebrities or even still have like movie stars and stuff. Yeah. Because there's all these layers of gatekeepers between you and Catherine Zeta-Jones or, George Clooney or whoever. But when you are famous on YouTube or whatever, and, you have YouTube Studio on your phone and you can see all the comments that everybody leaves, you can just open an app and see all the things that people say on your stuff. You can open an app and see all the ats that you get on Twitter or whatever. Yeah. There's no barrier as the idol, as the content creator, but there's also no barrier as the fan. And I've actually I've experienced it both ways, and I think the funny way that I've experienced it on the audience side is even just being like itty bitty nobody whatever filmmaker. I have had to be really careful not to really give opinions about movies on the internet anymore, because I am just connected enough that every single time I seem to do it, like the screenwriter of that movie will see it. And I just I have to be like, I've drawn the line in the sand, because it's happened like twice now, or like it happened once and then there was like another time where I'm glad I didn't say anything because I ended up like meeting that person like a week later. And I'm like, no, I'm just like, we are, the world is too small now. The world is too small with the internet. When you put something out there on public, anybody can name search, anybody can look it up, anybody can see it, and you just don't want to hurt feelings or whatever.
No, it's funny that you bring that up, because we have I'm gonna talk obliquely, but we have had a guest on the show before, and I had reviewed their movie negatively, and I was one of the very few people, their previous movie, not the one you were talking about, but their previous movie, negatively, and I was like, by the time I was so excited to chat with them about their new movie, but like I was sitting there going, oh my God, this is really awkward for me, because what if they put two and two together that I was one of the few negative reviews of their last movie? So it's just it's an awkward situation. So I completely get that.
I mean, you professionally have to give opinions about movies, so it's like that is so scary. I couldn't. It couldn't be me. I am done with hot takes. I keep them to myself. I'm just sort of like, if I like something, I'll talk about it. But if not, I'm just like, you know what? That's for the group chat. That doesn't need to be out there. That doesn't need to be out there in public.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard having an opinion online.
It is.
Anyway.
And I kind of wonder, like, it's really interesting to see. I really appreciate like how much journalists have resonated with Livescreamers, like you and some others. And it really was the tipping point for me, like with Livescreamers, because for a while there, it was just, I felt like nobody was really getting the movie. Like I just sort of felt really stuck with it. And then after Unnamed Footage and Panic Fest in like late March, early April, I felt like it finally reached its audience. But like part of that audience was it started to get press. And then once the press saw it, all of a sudden I was like, oh, people get it. Because I do think like even though it was made for like content creators in this sort of YouTube Twitch sense, it made me realize that like, oh, journalists are kind of also content creators these days. And like journalists have to put themselves out there, have opinions, have to deal with like the backlash, have to deal with all this sort of stuff that is really similar. And having to sort of work with the public for a living. So yeah, I thought it was interesting that I was like, and it started to really become a trend, and I was taking great interest in sort of reading. A lot of people's reviews basically started with like a 2-paragraph biography about like how they personally related to it. It was really delightful to kind of see people relate.
Well, and it's so true though, because like, you know, I feel like a lot of us have had similar experiences of like parasocial relationships online and like the weird relationships we make with other journalists online and like what that looks like and how we all interact with each other and like these really great and also sometimes accidentally toxic communities we create for each other that are so insular and really not like can be really helpful, but then what you capture so on Livescreamers is when that becomes so toxic that it like loops back around to being bad, and then it like you can kind of see like the issues with fandom and like finding these communities and letting these communities keep going the way that they have gone and not maybe like adapting how we act in the year of our Lord 2024 versus how we acted in like 2011. With fans.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely made mistakes in 2019, which led to some of the things I talk about in Livescreamers. Like having been in that fandom as just an anonymous person, you know, I was writing fanfics under like a username. I was making little edits and videos and that sort of thing. Nobody knew who I was. And then and I made Livescream at that point, but nobody knew that I was me. Like I was just an anonymous fan.
Yeah.
And I decided to make this little fan film, this short, and I mostly did it because I actually find making movies a little bit faster and easier for my brain than making prose. Even though you would think just sitting at your computer and pounding out some words would be easier and faster, it just isn't for me. So I made this fan film and then it blew up, but I was still in this weird position of like, people would follow me and I would follow them back and people would DM me and I would strike up conversation with them. And then I wasn't realizing that like, oh, I'm like a public figure now. And it really took me months to kind of realize that me and the other actors and the actors went through this as well, that we were in like a power dynamic now. And that there was, we couldn't just act like, you know, we did before. We couldn't just be like, I'm an anonymous fan and I'm gonna comment on people's fanfics, because then people would get weird. People would like screenshot that like I had looked at their story or that I had commented on their thing, and then they would like brag to their friends about. It was just awkward. So I almost had to like not engage just anymore and just sort of be like on high, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I am curious, not to change the subject, but one of the things I really wanted to talk about was the video game inside Livescreamers. Because from what I understand, did you create that yourself, or how did you?
I built an Unreal Engine 5. It took about. I mean, the movie was in post for about a year, and by in post, I mean like it was on my computer and I was working on it because I had 3 composers and I had somebody. I had somebody make the Siren. His name's Dustin Mills. Made the. Who's actually a pretty well-known director in his own right. made the siren. Like, he rigged her, designed her, textured her, like, from the ground up. He's the siren's daddy. And then, but everything else, I bought assets on the Unreal Marketplace or other places. So I didn't have to model and I didn't have to texture myself, but all the levels are still built from the ground up. So I would take those assets that I had, I would bring them into Unreal and then be like, okay, so what do I want the Great Hall to look like? Let's just start laying down the floor and let's start like building some walls and columns and stairs and all this sort of stuff and building it out. Because, you know, it is a pretty on rails script, so the game had to match what we were trying to do with the script, which means that the layout of the house has to lead into the rooms of the different levels that they're working on and stuff. So it took about a year to edit down the live action footage and get that all together, and then build the whole game in Unreal, build all the characters in MetaHumans, and then get them in, and then also import the animations, retarget the animations, get the characters animated, and then do every shot of gameplay. The movie's 90 minutes, 85 minutes has gameplay on screen.
I was going to say, it's pretty ubiquitous on the screen. We're making it easy for yourself.
I kind of think I don't know why this necessarily is. I think sometimes people just don't watch trailers or whatever. I think some people are surprised by how much of the movie is gameplay. I think people don't go into it knowing that it's going to be like the whole movie, because if you look at something like Stay Alive or whatever, the game is like 10 minutes of it or something. I've seen it once like 6 years ago, so I remember very little other than the fact that it wasn't as much of a video game movie as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like they're playing the game the whole movie, and then it's like they play the game in Act 1 and then it becomes a Final Destination movie. But yeah, no, I think people expect something more like that, where it's like, oh, the gameplay, like they'll do gameplay and then, you know, they'll do that for 5 minutes and then they'll go do a movie for the next 10. And it's like, no, it's 85 minutes, pretty uninterrupted of gameplay. So it was a lot. It was hundreds of shots. I don't even know how many shots of, because you have to do all the different POVs too, because there's 8 different POVs. Yeah, so you couldn't do it like uninterrupted like with Livescream.
I was wondering how much of a pain in the ass it was to edit this, because you have to like get the game, you have the footage of the people, and then you have to like somehow match up what they're seeing. And as you mentioned, the different POVs, like that must have been a nightmare to edit. It
was a lot. My timeline was quite extensive. I would say that 2 things that were the hardest about it. One, I did all the sound design myself on this, and I really put everything into it. I realized about halfway in that I was like, oh, I actually need like full game audio. Like I need to develop like a full like I need to make this game sound like the game has its own fully developed game audio. So that meant designing the environmental sounds, but also the sound effects, but also the footsteps. So every different footstep that a character takes, you know, not only was put in to match up with their character movement, but also I designed them depending upon what material they were walking over. So like when they're walking over dirt, it sounds different than when they're walking over tile, so hunting all that down, doing that. And then the other thing is that I got to take the piss out of Michael Smallwood here a little bit, because he was the one who made this the hardest for me. Whenever they are holding the controller, you know, they can play, but if their hands are not on that controller, I can't move the camera. And that really became struggle, because there's a scene where Nemo and Mitch and Lucy are all on a ledge together, and they're having this conversation with each other. And Ryan and Michael both kept putting their controllers down. And I had to edit around it. I was like, basically, anytime that they started to put it down, I would cut to somebody else, because I was like, no, they have to move. They have to hit a mark in the game. Like, their characters have to keep playing. They can't, we can't just have them be still. So trying to edit around that, depending upon where I needed them to be, was also fun.
Wow.
Oh my God. Wow.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Because I feel like people think about found footage and screen life. It's like an easy way to make movies, and I'm like, well, no. not this kind of way.
No,
this is
it really
not that. This is
not
actually
at all.
much harder.
I was talking to Isaac Rodriguez the other day, who did Deadware, which is sort of the other game found footage film.
Yeah.
And I've known of Isaac for a while, but we only recently started to get to know each other, and we were just talking about, you know, our movies. And he said that he had like 20 layers or something on that movie, because he was like, yeah, I designed the entire operating system that they're on from scratch.
Oh shit.
And I was like,
oh my
yeah,
God.
brother, I get it. And he's like, that movie took me like 3 times longer than any other, you know, movie. It was just that it was such a post nightmare to do it. And I'm like, yeah, it's anything like that. I think people take for granted what they see on a screen necessarily. Another one that sort of blew my mind, not a found footage movie, but kind of like that, was The People's Joker. I watched that movie and I was just like, oh yeah, no, this movie only could have been made by somebody who's a post-professional, because it would have been incoherent in the hands of like anybody who didn't know exactly what this needed to look like before all that green screen and stuff was replaced. And every single shot had something in it, some sort of visual effect. It must have taken forever for her to make that.
I can't imagine. Amazing. Because everything, it's incredible. But like, it seriously like is wild to me when I think about that. But we've talked a little bit about Livescreamers. I'm curious, like, how did you get into the horror genre? Was it something you loved as a kid? Like, what point did horror come into your life?
So I feel like I made some big changes when I became an adult. I shed a lot of my youth. And there were 2 things that I wasn't really brought up with because my mother wasn't into them. The first one is horror movies, and the second one is video games. So like I didn't grow up with games.
Wow.
Because they'll rot your brain, kid, or you'll shoot your eye out, whatever. So I didn't grow up with that. And then when it was 2013, and I was moving out for the first time. I was 21 years old, and I had an apartment to myself, and I could do whatever I wanted, you know, with my time and my space and whatever. And I was my first Halloween alone, and I decided to start watching horror movies for Halloween. And I watched Scream for the first time. I watched Cabin in the Woods for the first time. Wow. I watched, you know, Alien for the first time, like all during that month. And it was like, I really never went back after that. And around that time too, I was getting into YouTube for the first time, and I watched Markiplier's Alien Isolation playthrough, which I to this day watch every Halloween. And then over time, you know, Five Nights at Freddy's came out and I watched that, and Evil Within came out and I watched that. So I just sort of stuck with it. And in addition to watching people play games, I started to sort of think, well, maybe I should play some myself, you know? And I played Heavy Rain, which was the really, it's charming. It is not maybe a good game. It's charming though, and it really did get me into motion capture and video games though. And I just became obsessed with mocap and stuff after that. And I loved Quantic Dream, which led me to, of course, getting into Detroit Human, and the rest is history. But I can attribute very few things in my life to having had more singular impact on my future than having played Heavy Rain for all of the things that all of my movies at this point are about video games. Or I just did a mocap short earlier in this year. That's my current work in progress, is a mocap project. Cool. I wouldn't have done any of that had I not, you know, gotten into games or gotten into horror or whatever, kind of in that singular few month period of time. But going
Heavy
back,
Rain.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I just wanted to. Heavy Rain is. I loved it when I first played it, but I'll tell you what, that game changed how I interacted with things online, because I had first started playing it. I picked it up and I was like, I'm really excited because I really enjoyed Indigo Prophecy, and I was like, I'm ready for this game. I'm very excited, and I tweeted about it, and someone replied with their name being one of the characters and said, I am the origami killer, and ruined the twist.
Oh no.
Ruined who the big reveal was. And after that, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? And so after that, I'm very careful when I'm playing a game that's very popular that I won't like necessarily, because I don't want things to be spoiled because of that damn game.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you gotta move in silence. You gotta not let people ruin that. That's awful. Because it was such a big, I didn't see it coming. I remember being shocked.
It's a big reveal.
Yeah, I didn't
see. It's a big reveal.
I didn't see it coming. I've also like since I played it on stream once, so I have that, and then I also I had friends over and made them play it across the course of an entire day. And
I did that with Until Dawn.
Yeah, Until Dawn's also great. Obviously, I love Until Dawn. It's all over Livescreamers. I don't want to pay $60 for the remaster, I'll be honest.
Yeah,
I think that's a little ridiculous.
I was like, I'll wait for a sale. I really want to replay it, but like, yeah,
I can't believe it's not just on PlayStation Plus. Like, I feel like that should be something that's included in my PlayStation Plus membership. Yeah. Like, come on. I should open it. I agree. We should get that one for free for being homies.
I think so. Or it should have been like the $10 upgrade that they're doing for Horizon or something. Something to that
like
effect.
That, yeah.
Like, I'm like, come on, people.
Yeah, $60 for a I mean, it is a remake. It's not a remaster, I suppose, but still, I mean, I don't think the Epic Mickey remake is $60. I think that one's only $30.
Yeah, which I want to really play that one because I remember really enjoying that one back in the day. There's just so many games. Right now.
One of the only games that I actually had as a child, and I played like 2 levels of it and then gave up because that camera. So
the camera was horrible. That's one of the reasons I'm excited for this remake is because they've apparently fixed the camera, and I'm like, yeah, great,
let's go.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, but you had talked. You were gonna say something, and I completely derailed our conversation by talking about Heavy Rain. It was about
going back a little to like childhood, like my first experience with horror. I will say that the one horror movie I was kind of able to watch because it was a horror movie my mom liked was Poltergeist. So that was it's a pretty like cliche first horror movie that for
that's
people
a good one, though. That movie like destroyed me as a child. That movie is scary as shit.
It was like the one actually scary movie that they would play on 13 Nights of Halloween on like Family Channel or whatever, Freeform, whatever year
the
it was.
ABC Family before
ABC
it was Freeform
Family,
or whatever. Yes.
Whatever it was called.
Yes.
But yeah, like they would do Two Heads Are Better Than One. They would do the one with Christopher Lloyd being a zombie. They would do Beetlejuice and a lot of those sorts of like horror comedy family horror movies. And I loved those, but like Poltergeist is an actual horror movie.
Yeah.
And so I sort of consider that one like that one's not Hocus Pocus. Like I loved Hocus Pocus and stuff, but that's not really horror. Like it's a family movie. Yeah, no, Poltergeist was like the first movie that actually was like, I found unsettling, but also interesting and really engaging and very watchable. And I would say it's still probably one of my faves. Like I like to watch that one kind of every year when I can.
It's a great film.
Yeah. I love Hocus Pocus. So before we move on to your pick though, do you remember the last film that like has really scared you or kind of rocked you, or even the last video game? I feel like video games easier for me personally, but
I'll tell you what, I downloaded that Silent Hill. It wasn't the remake, but it was like that that free little thing that they had on PlayStation. It was like a 2-hour little free experience. You play as a girl, like going
the
back.
Short Message, right?
A Short Message, yeah. I got about 10 minutes into that, and then I was like, I Googled, I was like, do monsters chase you in this game? And the answer was yes, and I was like, I'm out. I was like, if this is just gonna be creepy, I'm all about it. But nah, I don't like being chased by things in games. That's
not an Outlast fan.
I love watching other people play it. I watched the Play Pals, the Michael Jones and Gavin Free. It's hysterical. I love it, but I would never play it myself. No, and never. Even knowing it backwards and forwards like I do now. Like I know every jump scare in that game at this point. I still could not. I probably couldn't even do Alien Isolation because of how unsettling it is that you're always being hunted.
Yeah, that game scared me. Like, there's a moment towards the end though where like you get the flamethrower and it turns a little bit more actiony a little bit. But that game still has some of the most I almost shit myself type of scares in it.
The one that always gets me in the Markiplier playthrough is he goes into the vent to hide, and the alien fucking comes in after him.
Yeah, like, bitch.
He's like, I didn't know he could do that. Like, oh no, nowhere is safe. That's not cool. No, thank you. And then movie wise, I'm trying to think of the last movie that I had to like sort of watch through covered eyes. I will say I'm not really a person who actually gets scared by movies, and part of it is because like I kind of also know some of my limits on things. Like bet The Substance is fabulous, but I can't do body horror. I know that I would be so grossed out by that movie that I just can't. Unfortunately, because like I'm sure it's brilliant and I'm really
great.
Curious about it, but I'm like, oh god, I probably wouldn't be able to stomach it. But like I don't tend to get scared by movies, and it's always like sort of like a funny criticism I hear of like, well, this movie didn't scare me, and I'm like, do movies scare people? But I did watch Autopsy of Jane Doe through covered hands. There were some things in that I was like, I don't go, no, I don't want to see
really
this.
Good
no.
tension. It has a lot of really good tension in that film.
Yeah. I just the shotgun faced guy with the bell on his foot, and you just hear the bell down the hall, but you don't see his face. I'm like, I don't want to see his face. Don't show me his face.
Oh, it's so good. I also think the movie. I feel like that movie's like severely underrated in my.
Oh, absolutely underrated. I think it's Andre Overall is the director. He's done some really great stuff.
I still think that's his best film, but he's done some really great stuff. But that movie, I love it so much.
Yeah, so that one's the one that comes to mind is like, oh no, I actually was scared. I did not want to watch. I was hiding on the couch.
Amazing.
All right. Well, we've talked about things that have scared you, but what about the thing that scared you the most? What movie did you bring with you today for us to discuss, Michelle?
They're laughing because they know it's absurd. So I didn't bring a horror movie. Like when I was a kid, I watched Jaws, fucking loved it. I went to Universal Studios and made them make me ride Jaws for like over and over. I called Universal Studio Jaws House. I was like, I want to go see Jaws. Like, wave to the shark as he eats the boat. I was like 3, loved that. Loved Jurassic Park. Dinosaurs eating people. No, this is fine. I was a little scared by E.T. There's some bits of E.T. that are a little
fucking weird, okay?
There's a little bit of E.T. that I'm like, oh yeah, that kind of creeped me out. But no, the movie that's traumatized me so bad that still, as an adult, I won't go back and watch it because I literally, in the theater, like, cowered and covered my eyes until my family told me it was safe, is Bean from 1997. You know, the Mr. Bean movie.
All right, so before we get into your scarred for life story, which I cannot personally wait to hear, and Terry can't stop laughing about, in Bean, the bumbling Mr. Bean travels to America, when he is given the responsibility of bringing a highly valuable painting to a Los Angeles museum.
Okay, so before we do get to your story, I want to know: were you aware of Mr. Bean before seeing the movie?
I don't believe so. I was 4 or 5 years old. Okay. So this was one of the first movies I remember seeing in theaters.
Wow. Okay.
I before then it might have been like, was Men in Black 97 or was that 98? But like I saw Men in Black in theaters, and that was fine. Giant cockroach, no problem.
It was the same year.
It was the same year. So I would have seen Men in Black. I would have seen like The Lion King, George of the Jungle, family movies, whatever. Okay. Star Wars special edition. My mom was a huge Star Wars fan, so saw Star Wars. Jabba the Hutt, no problem. Love it. Sarlacc pit, not scary.
All right, so take us back. You already said that you saw it in the theater, so take us back to that day that you went to see this movie. What about this movie terrified you? Why is this your Scarred for Life pick? I'm dying to know.
It's shocking how much I remember of this day.
All right.
I mean, you wanted drama. I have the full snapshot, the photographic memory. So I was with my mom. So actually, here's what's weird about it. So at the time, I was living in Wilmington, and because that was where I was born and everything. And so I lived in Wilmington with my parents, but I saw that movie here in Charleston, where I live now. Because that's where my grandparents lived. So apparently, I guess we were, I don't know what time of year this movie came out. Maybe it was a holiday movie. We were my mom and I were in Charleston visiting my grandparents. And so here in Charleston, it's not there anymore, but RIP, there was this dollar theater that it seems like every time I would visit Charleston, we would go see something. We saw Batman and Robin there. I remember in that theater, we saw Bicentennial Man. Like, I have all these memories of going to this specific theater.
Oh my God, Bicentennial Man, what a fucking movie.
Oh yeah, we saw that. So at this dollar theater, I just have so many memories of going there with my grandparents and mom and seeing things. And so I guess, we decided we're going to go see Mr. Bean or whatever. And I don't know that I knew what Mr. Bean was. I don't think I did, because I feel like this later on in life, when I found out that he had like a whole sitcom and stuff in England, I didn't know that. Like, I didn't know that he was an established character. I thought that it was Rowan Atkinson just doing a movie. And so, yeah, for those who've never seen Bean, it is a comedy. I think it's like a PG comedy. I don't think it's like a adult comedy. I think it's like a family movie.
Yeah, it is PG-13.
Okay, PG-13. Maybe there's
I thought it was PG. I'm surprised to see that, but yeah.
Maybe there's some like crude humor in it or something. I don't know. But so Mr. Bean doesn't talk. Like, that's sort of his shtick. Like, he's a silent comedian. He's like a mime. And he just like gets himself into trouble, and that's his whole like comedy act. It's like he just gets himself into goofy situations and then like somehow fumbles his way out of it without anybody knowing. Well, the goofy situation that he found himself in this movie was the painting that he has to transport is Whistler's mother. Which was not a painting I was familiar with when I was like 4 or 5. It was just, I've later found out that is a very famous painting.
Yeah.
And I believe I was in art history class in college and we studied that painting, and I was like getting hives. I was like, no.
I know you.
I was like, no, this is unlocking things. So I don't remember exactly what happens, but like he ends up like getting turpentine or something on the painting and like tries to clean it, but ends up like scrubbing the paint off of Whistler's mother's face, like half of the paint, like her face part on the painting. Yeah. And his solution to this is to draw in blue marker, I still remember it being blue, a like very basic smiley face over her face. And I don't know why, but that horrifies me on an existential level.
4 years old, existential crisis about...
It's just like the face just creeps me out.
And it is creepy.
It's creepy. I still don't want to even Google it. I still don't even want to Google it and see what it looked like in my memory. In my memory, it's still horrifying. I was devastated. I was covering my eyes in my seat. I buried my face in my grandfather's lap and just like was crying. And they were so confused. My family was so confused. They're like, what is your problem? And I'm like, the face. And I'm like, I mean, whatever. They didn't make me watch it, but they were like, they were laughing at me.
They were like, what cosmic horror is this child seeing in this face? Like,
Right.
what hath she seen?
But so they basically I remember them just laughing. And then there were certain scenes in the movie where they would go show other things or whatever. And they would be like, it's safe. It's not in the scene. You could watch the movie. It's gone. It's whatever. And I would be like, okay. And then I would like watch it again. And then they would cut to another scene where there it was. And I would freak out again and like hide. And then I stopped trusting them. And then, this, like, God, I don't know what the runtime was, but it felt like in my memory, it must have been half an hour. Like, I think half an hour of this movie went by of me hiding in my grandfather's armpit, like, unable to watch this movie until finally, like, he somehow, like, he fixed it with bubble gum. That's what it was. He, like, he cleaned it up with bubble gum or something.
He replaced it with a poster. He got the poster version of it and used bubble gum to stick it to.
Oh,
and he kept the original.
I've spent my entire life thinking that he wiped paint off of it with like bubble gum.
No,
he replaced it with one of the pictures, the prints that they have.
But I remember my mom like poking me and being like, "It's over. He fixed it with bubble gum. Like you can like look." and I look up and it's fine again. And I'm like, okay. We're safe. And actually it triggered kind of like another phobia of me, like for the next like couple of months. I got really weird about masks and like faces and stuff. Like I wouldn't walk down the Halloween aisle at the pharmacy because of all like the Halloween masks. And my grandmother, for some reason, honestly, this is pretty freaky. She had these like white theater, like comedy drama style, like masquerade masks hanging on the wall in her like guest room or something. And I made her take them down when I stayed in there.
Good. She shouldn't have those on the wall.
They scared me. And yeah, so like I didn't tell my mom that I was doing this, but I think after this I might text her and be like, I went on a podcast and talked about Mr. Bean. What do you remember about this? Because I think there's no way she forgot. Because like she's like, no, you had a weird thing. You had a phase where you were like really weird about faces and masks and stuff.
What is that face has to have some weird like deep primal thing in your body, like you'll release some kind of weird fight or flight response. You know what you're describing. Actually, it might have actually been my first experience with the uncanny valley.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, and especially because Mr. Bean is like such a weird, uncanny character, and then that happens. I feel like that might have been part of it. Been like, what am I experiencing and what am I watching on screen? I hate this.
Yeah, I mean, not that the face that he drew was in any way realistic, but I think like the idea of like that face don't look right, like just that sort of disconnect. Like I have found myself pretty sensitive to the uncanny valley, surprisingly, considering making Livescreamers and being a video game person and loving Heavy Rain.
That's uncanny valley right there.
The remaster was better, but it's still like they definitely improved upon it and overcame it in later. The PlayStation 3 era was rough. I mean, it
really was.
My side tangent is basically like we need to kind of remaster like every game made from 2007 to 2012, really.
Yeah, I think so.
Especially Fallout 3, Bethesda, any day now.
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I think I probably am a little sensitive to the uncanny valley, and that's my best guess is that my experience feeling creeped out by certain like not quite human faces. That is kind of like that primal thing in the back of your brain of like, that is not a person, and I don't like that.
It's so funny because like as this was I think the first time I've seen this movie. Watching this movie, I had some kind of weird memory unlocked of, ironically, the face that he paints over on that. And I'm not sure. I texted my brother because my brother and I'm 8 years older than him. And I was like, so maybe he was watching this on TV. Cause this isn't, Mr. Bean has annoyed me ever since I have seen him on I don't know if it was a sitcom that I saw an episode of or something, but I was like, this guy's annoying. I cannot stand him. And so I would not have seen the movie. But yet I do remember the face very clearly that he paints on that picture. So I don't know if it was in a trailer that I saw. I don't know. My brother says he's never seen it. So I don't know if I don't know how I saw it. But I was watching this last night and I was like, okay, what about this is the reason that this is her Scarred for Life pick? So it's like, okay, we get to this early scene where Bean and David go to a pier and there's like a scary ride. And I was like, okay, maybe it's a scary ride, but then the scary ride wasn't that scary. So it's like, okay, maybe. And then we get to the part towards the end where he is like fumbling in the cop's chest and pulls out a bloody M&M that he had dropped in it.
Oh God, I remember that. I remember that too. That was gross. Yeah.
He's like, because the whole gag is he keeps throwing it up in the air and catching it in his mouth, and of course he had the surgeon's mask on, and so it bounced off and went into the cop's cavity, and he was just digging around the cavity, takes it out, drops it in some solution to clean it off, and pops it in his mouth. And I'm like, this has to be the scene, right? Because that would be horrifying, particularly if you're 4 years old. That would be incredibly horrifying. It was played for laugh, but it's not. It's not funny.
Now that you mentioned that, that is a scene I remember from the movie. I don't remember the pier scene or the scary ride at all, but I do remember the M&M and the surgeon and that too. So like maybe I was already like unsettled at that point in the movie. I was like, oh, I don't like this. But no, it was 100% the face. What, did you have any suspicion, either of you? When you were
like. Mary Beth was texting me earlier as she was watching this, and I was like, I don't know what the scary scene was. I was like, maybe it's the M&M, but like that was literally the only thing. I was not expecting you to say that the painting.
Yeah, that definitely was not the one I thought. I didn't know. I thought it was going to be the M&M, or maybe like just like one of the weird like slapstick bits, but no. It's that. All right. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Mary Beth, this was your first time watching it too, right?
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
So this movie hits on a very specific genre of movie that I absolutely despise, and it is the baby man subgenre. Like, I can't fucking stand Pee Wee Herman, and Mr. Bean is basically British Pee Wee Herman to me.
Yeah.
Without like the whimsy, and he's just kind of like a creepy British man. So I have not at all like Mr. Bean. I side-eyed Mr. Bean when I was a child. Like, I did not like him. Something about him made me uncomfortable. I was like, why would a grown man act like that? I don't understand. Like, why is everyone just like okay with this? So I just absolutely despised him. And watching this, that I still despise him as a person. I can't. Like, I just can't. Look, this is no shade to anyone who likes Mr. Bean, and if you grow up liking Mr. Bean, that's totally fine. I cannot understand the appeal of watching this man just be a fool. I have a hard time with it. So this movie just, like, made me very angry.
You know, it's funny, Mary, but because, like, we talked about Pee Wee Herman on the show. We've talked about your dislike of this man-child type of thing. But I think for me, because I grew up watching Pee Wee Herman, that like I never really, put two and two together. And I think because I'm approaching this later in life and I don't have that sort of childhood attachment to this character that some people do, I was like, oh, this must be how Mary Beth reacts to Pee Wee Herman, because I was so annoyed, particularly I think what annoyed me the most is this idea that this very bumbling fool is able to sort of Forrest Gump his way into a job, into like getting protected from his boss, because like everyone wants to fire him except the person that hired him. And all of a sudden, like, he is able to come out to the other end by just being there. It's this like failing upward thing that I see at work a whole lot in my corporate job. I see it happening so often where like a mediocre white man ends up like failing upward and is completely incompetent at his job and is incompetent at doing anything, and yet somehow he keeps rising and rising and rising. And I'm watching this going, it was raising my blood pressure because I was like, this dude is destroying this priceless painting and he is somehow going to make it through and everything's going to be fine by the end. And I was like, this is, as a 44-year-old in a corporate career, this was really starting to irritate me watching it. So I completely understand your dislike of Pee-wee Herman.
Yeah, what I didn't tell you is what really traumatized me was the patriarchy. When I was 4 years old, I just
you're already like, fuck the patriarchy. I love it. I love it.
So I'm not missing anything by not going and revisiting it, is what I'm hearing.
Oh God, no.
No, not really. At least not. I don't. If you don't have like fond, lovely memories of it, then I don't think you. Yeah. And then it's just, again, now it's just like a frustrating portrait of another man-child that just continues to fail upwards and just be a doofus and get away with being a doofus and face no actual consequences for his actions.
Yeah. What surprised me about like digging, I was like, who wrote this? Richard Curtis. Of
that name is
Rich
familiar.
Jones's Diary, Notting Hill, Four Weddings and a Funeral, Love Actually, About Time, and Yesterday was a co-writer on this movie, and also apparently co-wrote, or at least either wrote or co-wrote some of the sitcom episodes. Richard Curtis did this. Academy nominated, I believe, Richard Curtis.
What does he have to say for his sins?
It probably paid for a wing on his house or something.
Honestly, probably.
When I found that out, I was gobsmacked. I was like, Richard Curtis.
I will say I do have fond nostalgia and stuff for Love Actually, but that is a movie that every subsequent year I have more issues with.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't age great like some of the things, and it's just like, yeah, it's kind of got that bumbling man-child problem sort of across the board with every male character in the movie. So that one seems like the most, especially because Rowan Atkinson is also in it.
Yeah, that
one actually doesn't shock me that's the same. But About Time is great. About Time is a great screenplay. So
yeah.
You win some, you lose some. You know?
You sure fucking do. I tried to show my husband Love Actually, and he was like, I can't do this. These people are horrible. And I was like, what do you mean? And then I watched it, and I'm like, you're right. But I have nostalgia for it. It's fine.
I mean, there's fun bits in it. There's some really fun bits. There's some, I don't know, I got some problematic faves in it, you know? Like that too.
I mean, the movie's terrible. Like, I know this. I deeply know it's terrible, like, very deeply early 2000s. But you know what? Sometimes
you just, you got that comfort watch.
But, like, I can feel... It's interesting because I can, like, feel the Richard Curtis a little bit, because as much as this is a Mr. Bean movie, he does try to be like, look at this American guy. He's trying really hard to fight for his family and, like, tries to, like, because at one point at the end, his daughter gets into a motorcycle accident and is, like, not in a coma, but she's just taking a break, is what his wife says. And then, like, it's this whole weird subplot about, like, a motorcycle accident. So that has that, like, weird, now that you said Richard Curtis, I'm like, oh, that's a joke. That makes a lot of sense. This weird, like, family drama subplot they try to have in it, like, to make it somehow emotionally interesting. That makes a lot of sense.
She's not in a coma. She's just taking a break. What?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to see, because I think I actually wrote this down. Oh, timeout. Yeah. So the doctor says she isn't in a coma. She's just taking a timeout is the literal line.
She's just taking a timeout.
What?
Yes, okay, just taking a timeout. I was wondering, I was like, what is, like, I couldn't remember.
Yeah, I was like, I just happened to write that line down because I was gobsmacked by a lot of what happened in this. So yes, I can kind of understand. I can understand what you're saying, though, Mary Beth. But this movie is structured so weirdly because, like, the climax of the film, I thought should be like when he, resolves it and the painting's fixed and everyone likes it, and that is like into Act 3, and then Act 3 is this weird, we're at the hospital and he is now being mistaken for a doctor while the daughter is in a timeout. And we have like this extended thing where he's just like bumbling onward, and I'm like, was this, you didn't have enough time? Like the movie was just 90 minutes, you're like, we gotta make it 30 minutes, so you add another act to it. But like, why wouldn't that, I don't know, I was just like, why isn't that in the second act? Why isn't that like a complicating factor? Not like all of a sudden we're ready to resolve, and oh, by the way, now we're having this bike accident, and now we're stuck at this hospital, and now we're doing an surgery on the cop that has been following. Like, I'm just like, I don't understand. I don't understand the way this movie is structured.
Maybe
that's
it's
why I was really surprised.
A sitcom before, and it's almost like vignette pieces that didn't get used for like the show. I don't know.
Well, I will say that one thing I did find out, because Mary Beth found me a link for this movie, and the one we watched, I think, was the UK version of it, because there's this scene in the American version that I guess is taken from the sitcom where they're trying to prepare a turkey dinner for David's boss. And in the one we saw, they microwave a turkey because it's not cooked and it was going to take 5 hours, so they just tossed it in. But in the American version, yeah, I know, it explodes. It's a disaster.
Incredible.
It was actually one of the funniest moments in the movie for me. But in the American version, apparently, he ends up getting the turkey on his head, which is taken from the sitcom, apparently.
Okay, because, like, that was what I, like, know from Mr. Bean. Is like, the thing is him with a turkey on his head is, like, the whole gag.
Yeah. And apparently that tested better in America than it did in the UK. So they took it out of the UK one.
Interesting.
And put the few scenes that we saw about it. But, like, I don't know. This movie does feel like the sitcom kind of taken to an exaggerated length, and a lot of it seems to be curbed from the sitcom. I do think that maybe they were hoping that this would introduce children in America to more of Mr. Bean, maybe, but it didn't work for you.
Nah, I never touched that shit again. I was like, I have never
shit again.
I've never approached anything Mr. Bean in any capacity. He's had, like, 3 movies or something at this point? Nope. Not, or although actually, no, I get him confused with the Johnny English thing. He also did those. And there's somehow, like, 3 of those.
That's right.
Yeah. The first thing that I actually saw him in that Rowan Atkinson that I actually liked was Rat Race. I was talking with Mary Beth about this because he basically plays Mr. Bean in that, but he's less obnoxious, I think, because he's in less scenes, because it has like a huge cast, and so we only get little bits of him, and he can just do his like little funny, physical comedy, and then we're on to the next thing, and so it's just constantly moving. But that is the only time that I've seen Rowan Atkinson in something that I've actually liked him in.
I got a bone to pick with Rat Race because one of my favorite movies of all time is It's a Mad World. So I'm just sort of like, that's not as good.
Oh, I get it. It's not a great movie by any stretch of the means, but it is a movie that I will sometimes put on.
My 2003 Seth Green problematic fave is not Rat Race. It's Without a Paddle.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I love Without a Paddle.
I don't know if I would go back and like it today, but I really liked it in middle school.
Yep. Oh, yes. Oh, God. Oh, that's taking me back. Oh. Well, okay, one thing I will... Okay, I have a couple thoughts. But one, the reason why I feel like this did not resonate with kids is because at least Pee Wee Herman has, like, a childlike whimsy about him with, like, the couch, or his playhouse has, like, all the, like, kid stuff. Mr. Bean's just, like, a weird dude. Like, I just feel like it's hard to make him relatable for children because he just seems like a freak. And I hate it. And then, but I also love, though, in this movie, the women immediately are like, no, fuck this. There isn't, like, a woman who falls for him, but it's the wife. Like, the guy's wife immediately goes, we're out. Like, we are leaving the house. I will not be tolerating this guy. Like, my red flags are up a million. I will be leaving. And I love how she takes the kids and is like, I'll see you when he's gone. I was thinking of Elf, which is one of my favorite Christmas movies.
Love Elf.
And how this reminds me of Elf, but again, Will Ferrell as Buddy the Elf is just like charming and like kind of sweet, and Mr. Bean is just like a weird freak. I don't know. He just like gives me the ick. Mr. Bean gives me the ick.
I find Elf incredibly insufferable. So
okay.
For probably the same reason. I like all my friends love it, and they're like, you want to watch Elf this Christmas? I'm like, not really.
I always watch it while putting up my Christmas tree.
What?
I always watch it while putting up my Christmas tree every year. It starts Christmas season.
Yeah, I mean, everyone. It is the start of Christmas season. A lot of people love it. I remember going to see a play of it, a musical play of it, because my friends really wanted to go, and then we went to go see it. And I was like, "This is."
I don't know that I would like that.
It wasn't good. I think if you take Will Ferrell out of that, like, yeah, no, I can't do it.
Oh man, that Keebler Elf house on tree house on fire bit is fucking like, in the opening minute. I remember losing my mind in the theater the first time I saw that.
I should have stuck with making shoes.
I
or something
know.
like that. Yeah.
I should have made shoes.
I should have made shoes. Oh my god.
My friends will quote that movie at me, and I'm just like,
nope, just dead inside.
I have no idea what you're saying.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
I think that's probably an age thing too. Like, yeah. I think Mary Beth and I are similar in age, so it hit right at the right time for us. Whereas you would have probably been already an adult.
Yeah, when did Elf come out?
2003.
Okay, yeah, I would have been 22.
22? Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I kind of see that a little bit.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Like there's some things, some more recent like younger people movies that have come out maybe in the 2010s that like I was already kind of too old for. And there was also some like Home Alone was a little before my time. So I actually really didn't get into Home Alone, and I didn't even watch it ever until like 2 years ago. Like I don't think I'd ever seen Home Alone, and I thought it was actually quite good.
Yeah, I was 9 when that came out, so that was like.
So that was yours, yeah.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah. Bean.
What else is there else to say about Bean before we wrap this up and give this our rating?
I don't think I have anything else.
Well, at least Mary Beth agrees that it's creepy. I mean, hey, like I wasn't completely off base here. No, we
are all in agreement. I found from the very moment where he is introduced and he is shaving his forehead and then he starts shaving his tongue. I was like, I am gonna hate this movie.
I'm surprised that didn't traumatize me. Actually, I have no memory of that.
Yeah, he has like an electric razor and he's just doing all over the place, getting his forehead, and then he sticks out his tongue and runs it up and down. And it's like, this movie is not going to be it for me.
Yeah. And you know what? That's fine. I don't know who it's for, honestly. That's okay.
The one joke that I did actually enjoy, though, is early on when we have the museum has bought the painting back and they're bringing it back to America because it's America's famous painting or whatever, right? And the marketing person at the museum is like trying to come up with ways to commodify it. And so they have like all these little knickknacks that are related to it. But then they bring out a nude photo shoot with this woman and they're calling it Whistler's sister. And I was like, this is definitely something that America would do for great art is
my God.
Find a way to commodify it. So like that part kind of made me laugh a little bit. But that was about it. The rest of it, I was just like, this dude, I can't stand his buggy eyes. I can't stand the fact that he doesn't talk barely. He just mumbles things once in a while. I just like, I can't, this man. So no, Michelle, please do not revisit this. Have that traumatizing memory in the back of your mind. But do not go revisit this. You might unlock new traumas, honestly.
Yeah, I don't need to see him shaving his tongue. That's
no one does.
No. If you really like this movie, can you please reach out and let me know why? Please. Like, I'm not trying to be rude. I just don't understand the appeal of these things. And maybe it was because my mom also didn't get it, so my whole family was just given the ick by these men. I don't know. They did not resonate with me as a child. They still don't resonate with me as an adult.
Yeah, I was going back through, I was looking at Letterboxd and the people that I'm like friends with on there to see if there was any, and there's a couple that are 3 to 4 stars. I don't.
It. And help me understand, please.
I mean, so I will say, former guest of the show and friend of the show, Emily Gagne, says, can't rate it simply because I am biased beyond belief when it comes to Bean. I am just nuts for this idiot who gets himself into the craziest jams and somehow, without fail, finds a way out.
I've read that and I was like, Emily, I don't understand. That's okay. That's okay.
I only like trash men when I can relate to them in some way. I love a good rat man. I love a good rat because it's just like, yeah, I'm rat. I am rat. I am brat without the B. I am rat.
I am rat.
I am rat.
I am rat.
I am slightly masculine rat. Like I get it. Like I've been printing upon this garbage pail man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know I'm kind of with you on like the failing upwards. Like I can't relate to that. I can't relate to that.
I just can't. I can't do it. And
I know too many people like that. Like obviously to a different degree, but I know too many people like that. It's just I can't.
It's too much. It's just too much for me. And you know what? And now I know that I'm just never going to watch another Mr. Bean thing. And that Rowan Atkinson, unfortunately, just doesn't do it for me as a person. So
I feel bad that I made you guys watch this.
No, I'm glad you did. Sometimes we have to watch like a weird thing that is just absolutely baffling. And now I can be an informed hater, which is my favorite thing to be.
Informed hater.
So.
The thing is that like your story made it all. Like that was
exactly.
worth it. Your story made watching the movie
worth it.
If you had come in here and just said, I don't know, he just kind of creeped me out, I would have probably been a little irritated when we watched that movie. But your story was like, okay, chef's kiss.
My runner-up movie that was sort of the one that comes to mind as like the most traumatizing movie that I experienced as a kid was Brave Little Toaster, but I didn't choose it for a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm sure you had 15 people say that.
Actually, we still haven't talked about it.
But you seem to understand what I'm putting down.
I've seen it. I think because of my brother. I don't remember much about it, but I have seen that one.
I just remember it being cursed. But I really don't like that sort of my memory of it is way too vague. Like I just remember like it being kind of creepy and cursed and like the appliances being evil. And also I wouldn't say that it scarred me because it's like, well, I would go back and watch it today. You know, it's sort of just like, I remember it creeping out when I was a kid, but like, no, Mr. Bean, that is trauma. I won't go back and watch it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to watch it. I don't want to I do not want to go back to being 4 years old in that theater. It is left a lasting impression. So yeah, no, that one had to be the one. Like when I really thought about it, I'm like, that's the one that really was scarring. My parents also took me to go see the X-Files movie in theaters, and I do also in '99, so I was 7. I don't remember anything about that movie because I was hands over eyes the entire time. Did not open my eyes for the entire movie. I was horrified.
Oh my God. Well, that movie, I watched that movie too at a young age because my parents were like, well, you've seen episodes of it. You'll be fine. And I was like terrified of bees for like a really long time after watching that movie specifically. But that's like my parents, like, one time took us to see the Rocky and Bullwinkle movie. This is so unrelated to Bean, by the way, but now we're just talking about our parents making stupid decisions. Took us to see the Rocky and Bullwinkle movie in theaters. Thought, this is boring. Let's go see K-Pax instead. That really depressing movie with fucking Kevin Spacey.
As an alien?
And then I think...
Yeah.
Yeah, so they all think he's crazy, but he's actually... It's not for children. It was not for children. And my parents were bored of Rocky and Bullwinkle, so they said, let's go see K-Pax instead. Good Lord. Anyway.
Yep. Yeah, the X-Files movie, like, I don't know why they took me. They knew at that point that they would watch it, you know, every week or whatever, but they always put me to bed beforehand. Like, I never watched any of the episodes, like, and I remember being a kid in my room with, like, the covers up to here, afraid of the theme song.
Yep.
Like, the theme song creeped me out. Like, I didn't like it. And X-Files is another thing that I've never gone back and, like, given a try, even as an adult, because I'm like, ooh, how scary is it? But I've heard it's great. Like, it's really worth revisiting.
It is. And it's like, most of it's not, some of it is scary, I will say. Some episodes are actually, like, legitimately scary, but a lot of the episodes are not, like, that scary, I think. Especially as, like, in 2024 as adults. They just aren't. Some of them are, but a lot of them aren't that bad.
I do think it's funny, though, that your parents would put you to bed for the TV show, but the movie,
they must not have been able to find a sitter or something. They're just like, fuck it. We're
fine.
I just think that's so funny. Like, we're not going to let you watch the TV show that this is based on, but the movie where they can, like, go a little bit bigger than a TV show. Yeah.
She'll be fine for an hour and a half. It's, you know, whatever.
Amazing.
But they didn't take me to Lost in Space. They did that one alone, and I'm like, I probably could have handled that one.
Yeah. Of the two, that is the one that I would think would be more kid safe.
They came back and they hated that movie. I'll tell you, I have a strong memory of them walking into the house pissed off because they couldn't believe how bad it was.
Amazing.
Oh my God, that's incredible. Wow, I love that. Okay, well, let's wrap this up and give us a rating out of 5. Terry, you're up first.
I think we should change the rating, though, to ruined paintings. In honor of Michelle. Ruined paintings.
Yeah, all right, we'll change it. Yeah. How many ruined paintings out of 5? No longer blood-soaked M&Ms. How many ruined paintings out of 5 do you give Bean?
I mean, this is a horse that's dead, and there's no reason to keep beating it. It's a 1 for me. This was not Michelle's story. A 5. This movie, a 1. What about you, Mary Pat?
Yeah, I'll be generous and give it a 2. I can I don't know. I'll give it a 2. That's it. I'll give it a 2. I did giggle when he said it was the poster instead of the fixing the painting. That did make me laugh. It gave me a small chortle. And, as much as he annoys me, I will give props to Rowan Atkinson for funny body comedy. But that voice needs to burn in hell. I cannot stand it. And Michelle, based on your beautiful childhood memory of Mr. Bean, how many ruined paintings out of 5 do you give Bean?
I think it's gotta be a 1. I feel like I never ever want to interact with this piece of media ever again. Like I said, there's certain things where it's like you remember them as a kid and it's like, oh, that was fucked up, and then you go back as an adult and it's like, oh, that was actually a good movie, and I was just too young. But in this case, I'm like, nah, that was I knew something wasn't right, and I was right. Apparently.
Yeah.
4-year-old, you knew.
1 out of 5 uncanny valleys.
There we go. Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for joining us and sharing your fantastic story. Where can the listeners find you online? And the floor is yours to plug away with whatever you can talk about.
Well, if you want more Uncanny Valley, you can watch my movie Livescreamers, which I tried really hard to make just look like a normal video game. That is on Amazon Prime Video. It's VOD, so you have to rent it. But that's available in the UK and US. If you are outside the UK and US, you can find the Vimeo link. That's all on my social media. I've got it pinned and everything. And that's at Lady Tuano on Twitter, at Octopunk Media everywhere else. Also, like, if you want a Blu-ray, I do sell physical media of it as well as its predecessor, Livescream. Probably the best way to keep up with me is Twitter and Instagram. But if you want like BTS stuff and clips of new things and streams and all that sort of fun stuff, my YouTube channel is pretty active as well. The other thing to plug is I don't know when exactly this will air, but this coming Saturday, October 19th, I'm launching a new crowdfunding campaign for what is essentially going to be our new Patreon. It is called octopunks.tv, octopunks with an X. And so it'll be the $5 a month home of Livescream, our entire back catalog, as well as new stuff every month. We got a tabletop RPG show. We've got an improv show called Chips and Giggles. I also have this thing I'm doing where I take scripts that I wrote when I was 12 and I'm making a bunch of actors do a table read with my childhood writing. So that's going to be delightful.
Amazing.
Wow.
So fun shit like that, as well as an interview show called Claws Out, which is basically like Femme Queer Hot Ones, where instead of eating hot wings, we paint our nails and I interview different cool people. So
Sick.
Yeah, we're doing a launch stream this Saturday, October 19th, to like kick off the campaign, and we've got like a couple special guests, and we're gonna do a couple like Zoom versions of some of the shows to give people a taste of it. So if people are interested in supporting me more directly, a la a Patreon that is launching in early next year, and that'll be our home on the internet.
Heck yeah.
Hell
So
yeah.
listeners, will include all of this great stuff in the show notes, so go check it out.
Yeah. All right, listeners, you've heard from us, but we want to hear from you. I truly do.
Truly.
What is it with Bean? Please tell me. I don't get it. Is there anything to get? Please tell me. You can email us at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com, or you can let us know on social media. I am at mbmcandrews on Twitter and at mb.mcandrews on Instagram.
And I'm at Gaily Dreadful everywhere.
And don't forget to follow the podcast on social media. We are at Scarred Podcast on Twitter and Blue Sky, and at Scarred for Life Podcast on Instagram.
And please don't forget to review, rate, and subscribe. And if you want to help support us, we do have a Patreon.
Thank you to Eric Power for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Thank you everyone for listening. Please stay safe out there, but most importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time.